Welcome everyone to another episode of Come Sit With Us here at EBS. My name is Steve, and as always, very happy to have you here with us. Today's Facebook Live meditation is based on an early Buddhist text, or I would say a series of poems called the Book of Eights. And this was around very early on, before any of the scriptures, if you will, of the Buddhist practice were really developed and considered sacred text and all of that. And so before Buddha passed away, he would often ask, those who were in attendance to, cite what they've learned and on and so forth from these practices. And one of the things that kind of evolved from that was called this book, called the Book of Eights. What I like about it is that it's something that was developed before the scripture of Buddhist teachings was really put into place. And I always think, here we are 2,500 years later and trying to figure out, well, what did this guy, Siddhartha Buddha, what did he actually talk about? What would it have been like to have sat with him as he shared one of his teachings? Would we be expected to learn these teachings by rote and to be able to repeat them back? Would that have been the hallmark of success back in the day, or would it have been something different? And I think about that with all the great teachers, Christ, Allah, Confucius. I mean, just name them. In that today we know them through their writings, right? And those writings have been interpreted and reinterpreted and reinterpreted so many times that I wonder if what we have today is just a shadow of what was actually truly said or being, conveyed at the time. And so the thing that drew me to this particular writing is the Book of Eights. What it emphasizes is you learn truth through the direct experience of truth. You don't learn truth by reading about it, by someone telling you about it, by a noble sage saying this is what you should do. Don't do anything else but do this. This is the way to do it. And I like that, in that I think that all still holds true today, that we have to find what that truth is. We have a lot of great guides and people around us and very smart and wise people, and we have access to more literature today than anyone has ever had before in history. We have the internet and on and so forth. And so we can read about the things that interest us to our heart's desire, and it's great. I mean, I am a reader and have read way more than probably what I needed to read about, some of these things. But I was just drawn to those readings. But admittedly, after a while, reading about something is just not the same as experiencing it directly. And that I began to kind of understand a little bit about that, making friends with that teacher inside of us, that wisdom that we naturally have. In the Buddhist world, they talk about, recognizing the Buddha inside of the other person. And I think in some ways you can say, that each of us has that wisdom, that loving compassion. As often is talked about in Buddhist teachings, is that these qualities or traits are natural to us. We don't have to earn them or practice them and all this sort of stuff. If we just allow ourselves to open for them to express themselves through us, they naturally will, right? And it kind of goes back to that concept that before the scriptures, there was the teachings, and before the teachings, there is that direct experience. And I kind of wonder if one of the things that happens when you sit with one of these great teachers and they're talking about, truth, the experience of truth, whether in some way, shape, or form, you get to experience it directly yourself. And maybe if you've been touched by that experience, then your life is forever changed. And then you write great scriptures for the next 2,000 years for people to read for the next 2,000 years, But somewhere early on, you've had a direct experience. And I think once you've had that, you can't set it down. You can't walk away from it. It is something that is open your eyes a little bit. Maybe it happens once in your life. Maybe it only lasts for 3 seconds, but you'll never forget it. And you're a little bit different once you've experienced it. I tend to think that all of us have experienced this awakening. All of us kind of have touched upon, to some degree, that sage, that wisdom, that unconditional love that is there in each of us. And I think that in some way, that a lot of people in the West, I'll say in the States at least, to keep it safe, that one of the things that draws people to a Buddhist practice a lot of times is that the practices that they were raised in seem dry and don't really do anything for them for 20 different reasons. Doesn't really matter why. And what they're looking for is some sort of practice that does something for them. They're looking for that direct experience. And I think that in our meditation practices, that we have that opportunity to touch upon that direct experience. And that through the practice of meditation, that we get to see directly, maybe a little bit, what unconditional love maybe is, what true deep compassion, what that might kind of be like, that sense of intuitive, spacious wisdom, what that might be in your life or my life. And so, for me, I would say that that meditation practice is kind of that path that is the only path that I can figure out in my life that lets me or helps me to touch those qualities that seem so real and so they transcend, I could have all the money in the world. Would I be happy? Oh no, right? I could be the most popular person at school or at my work site or whatever, and would that really make me happy? I don't know if it would or not, right? Blah. And there's some other quality that draws us to seeking happiness, peace, serenity, those sort of things that have that quality of expansiveness to them. And that, for me at least, that meditation is that practice that helps me find my way back to that. And it's kind of an interesting way of saying it, because I'm not looking for it. I think it's there already. I'm just trying to find my way back to it. And so, if you ever have the chance, check out, it's called the Book of Eights, and it talks about, there's 4 basic ideas to it. I'm going to kind of read them here to you. It says the first one is letting go of all views. And deconstruct that a little bit, and like, wow, that's a pretty big order right there. Letting go of all views. And so what they kind of imply a little bit, I think, and you might read this differently, is that ability to see beyond your own perception, And if you think about it, we know that our perceptions are very conditioned by our upbringing, our environment, and on and so forth. Very conditioned perceptions on how we see the world around us. Imagine if that shifted for a second and you could see beyond that a little bit. And that was their first thing, is let go of all views. And with that, I think they also talked about don't accept truths because someone said it so. You have to find that yourself and experience it directly. So that's the first kind of a theme they have here. The second one is called avoiding sensual craving. But what strikes me is that ability to begin to self-regulate, meaning that you don't ride the roller coaster all the way up and all the way down, through life, as so much of us have in the past, perhaps, but that your ability to, when you are at those real highs or those real lows, is to step back and kind of see beyond that a little bit. And so you're not riding that all those ups and downs. The next one is understand the qualities of a sage. And I think that is kind of getting to, as we meditate and we start to have some experiences perhaps a little bit on what a sense of peacefulness is really like. Maybe a sense of intuitive understanding. As we begin to have some of those experiences, then perhaps we are understanding what the quality of the sage is really like. And then the last one is the training on becoming a sage. And I like that. And that what that kind of implies is that you have that wise teacher that's there inside, in a sense. And as the mind settles out, opens up, then perhaps the sage in us has an opportunity an avenue to come and express itself in our lives, So those are some of the thoughts. So think of the Book of Eights as having that direct experience, not just reading about it, not being told about it, not being told you should this or should that or all that sort of stuff, but opening up in that moment of the direct experience of what it's like to experience, compassion and unconditional love and so forth. So that's the thought. That's the seed thought on today's meditation. And so we're going to meditate here for about 10 minutes, as we always do. And a lot of times I like to do a guided meditation. I think most of us are visual learners, and having that visual reference kind of helps us stay focused and in tune. But today I would like to work with the idea of the seed thought, in that that sage, wise teacher that resides in each of us, and connecting with that in a sense, and sitting down with that and allowing it the space to be welcome into our home. And I know that for some of us this sounds crazy, because you might be going through a phase in your life where really rough time with finances or relationships or things happening within the family or personal health, i.e. life. And in the midst of all that, it's really counterintuitive to think about sitting down and getting focused on this place inside of you that has, wisdom, if you will. But maybe that's the best time to do it, is when we need it the most, is the best time to focus on it and connect with that part of ourselves. So let's go ahead and do that for a second, okay? All right, so when we get ready to meditate, I, today as always, sit in a chair and sit with my back straight. My feet are flat on the floor, generally speaking. My hands are in my lap, generally speaking. And as I get ready to meditate, I just start slowing my breathing down a little bit. I just take a longer, slower breath. And as I let that breath out, I start to allow my body to relax. And I can feel the change in my shoulders, my legs, my arms. I can feel the tightness in my chest begin to loosen up a little bit. I think I'm getting more in tune with just my physical body as it sits here in preparation for meditation. I begin to bring my awareness to my presence in the room. My eyes begin to close. I can feel that space around me. And with each breath, my body relaxes even deeper and deeper. And as I relax, I bring my focus to that seed thought of the sage within. And I bring my meditative mind to what that must be like, what that is, and what it must feel like. And I allow my mind to rest upon that image, that sensation. Then I just hold it and allow it to grow and to express itself. As always, we try to feel that space around us, try to sense the difference. And sometimes that meditative mindset that we get into, we just have to pay attention to it and recall it a little bit, if you will. So, share with you an experience. Here's what I ran into for me. As I thought about that sage within, that wisdom that I think that we all have, and how best to express it, is that this door here is what needs to be opened to allow that expression to have an avenue, if you will. And that's just my personal journey, and I know that. But just that connection of wisdom comes through what? What's the heart representative of? To me, it's non-judgment. To me, it's our connection with each other. To me, it's how we reach out to each other, and on and so forth. And I think that as we develop those qualities of non-judgment and reaching out and maybe being more sensitive and aware to the other person's sufferings and what have you, maybe in those practices too, we are allowing that sage an avenue of expression when we engage in a compassionate act. And I think that as we because we talk about this quite a bit in here, we call it taking it off the mat, and that the meditation practice is great. Whatever you do, 5 minutes a day, 50 minutes a day, 2 hours a day, doesn't matter. It's great. It's even more great when you are at the grocery store, at the stoplight, and someone is doing something that's irritating you. Then begin to engage that meditative mind, so that you kind of begin to experience a integrated mindset. It's hard to think about meditating in compassion, followed by an hour later, you're so pissed off at somebody because they pulled in front of you and you just want to scream at them. Those two worlds kind of don't quite work together sometimes. It's an odd universe that they float around in, and we try to bring that together. And so perhaps that sage, that point of wisdom, can be found through the exercise of applied compassion. Never know. All right, so this is the book. This is from our bookstore. Where we are? There we are. Yeah, there we are. This is from our bookstore, The Buddha Before Buddhism, Wisdom from the Early Teachings. And this is the one that talks about that book of eights, if you will. And if you're ever here at EBS, and you're interested in this, pick it up and check it out. I'm sure you can order it online. As always, you can order everything online. But, check it out. Because what I like to do is I like to challenge myself. And so sometimes I go into the bookstore here and look through some of the books and come across something I've never come across before. And yet it makes sense to me in a certain way. And I like that. That's kind of a good way to learn and such. So if you have a chance, check it out, pick up the book and see what you might get out of it, if you will. As always, I think meditation is practicing the art of listening to our inner self and understanding it and applying it. And so that meditation practice, if we can do those things, we are having a very good meditation practice, I would say. So, okay, guys, well, thank you very much for joining me today. I greatly appreciate it. And as always, if you have a chance, check out our website, come to some of the classes, and we will see you there. And thank you again. Take care. Bye.